I first became aware of this issue when I was the chair of Interfaith Ministries. And Interfaith Ministry runs the Meals on Wheels program. And we began to have a big problem with our drivers dealing with stray animals, and also seniors that were actually afraid to leave their house because of it. And so I've got a high school friend named Cherry Whitley who's been very active involved in CAP for a long time, and so she introduced me to Cappy, and we had lunch one day. And ever since then, I've become more and more aware of the problem and studied it. We've got an epidemic going on right now. Something's got to be done. I guess we're going to talk about some of the ways we can address that tonight, but this is a problem we can no longer ignore.
Okay. First, thank you for having me. First of all, the pets are part of our families, and we need to start to think that way. You know, it's like your kids, it's like your loved ones. And to answer this question, I want to first talk about we need to stabilize the financial, of the middle-class families and the low-income families by doing the creation of the vet clinic, Harris County Vet Clinic. It's a flat rate, card that cover all the medical expenses, include, the surgeries. Last time we had a surgery with my wife for our little dog, we spent over $4,000. That's a lot of money. That's the first thing. The second thing, we need a mandatory microchipping. If you have a microchipping in every pet, it's like everybody has their own idea in the street. So if you lose your pet by the microchipping, it's gonna go back to you. And thank you.
Let's focus on the question first, and then we'll talk about the solutions. We need to frame the question. How do you define the stray animal population or the homeless animal population in Houston? It's terrible. It's horrible. We should all hang our heads in shame. That's the issue in the city of Houston, and we need to get the message out that whether, I've talked to some groups, and I've talked to many that say, oh, it's 100,000 animals, and some say it's up to 3 million animals. I don't know what it is, but I know that pets are being attacked in some places in the city. I know that children are being chased by stray dogs. I know that our shelters are full. We went and did fostering, and we adopted or fostered 280 animals, and the very next day it's full again. We need to get the word out. There's a lot of people in this room that are doing that, but the city needs to lead and define and frame the issue, and that's what I'm going to do as mayor.
Thank you. Many of you know me already. Thank you for calling the 311 Houston Service Helpline. The helpline, when I was there, we categorized the calls based on the viciousness of the animal. We only responded to attack animals like bulldogs and things like that. The other categories, we disregarded because of resources. We have a problem. Whenever one child or any person, whether elderly or whatever age, is attacked by an animal, and we have had it, we have a serious problem. It's like gang members on the loose. And so, Houston, we need to take care of this. We need to do whatever we need to do to re-look at what the city of Houston has been doing. It's out of control. The city of Houston's animal bark, which is under the department I used to work for, was only caring about raising funds, nothing to do with the stray animals. And so the problem as I see it is way, way out of control.
Thank you. How does Houston's homeless animal issue impact the lives of Houstonians in your view?
Well, I touched on that a little bit earlier. Stray animals are hungry, and they revert to their natural behavior, and that's to run in packs and look for food and to attack anything that looks like would threaten them. And so you can't blame the animals for their natural behavior, but we also can't let it just continue like it is. And we literally, the biggest reason we had drivers quit Meals on Wheels was because of the dogs they had to deal with. That was one of the biggest problems we had in trying to recruit and keep drivers to deliver the meals. And we regularly ran into elderly folks that said they could not leave their house. They couldn't go outside in their backyard. They couldn't walk to the grocery store. They couldn't go to the community center and visit their friends because they were afraid of being attacked by attacks of dogs. So this is this is not only a humane issue with respect to the animals. This is a public health issue as it relates to human beings.
As a strategist and the risk manager, I look to what's the problem. What Mr. Tony Buzbee said is general. The problem, because the people, they don't have money to take care of their dogs, they put them outside in the street. They don't have money to do the nurturing and spaying because there is no a clinic, Harris Clinic, flat rate to take care of that problem. We don't have enough, officers in the street. Sometimes people in the street, they try to catch the dog and the pet and they got beat up and, they have problem. No. So we need to hire more officers. We need to make fast, the intervention. It's not 911 or 311 as my friend say, but, but the problem, the source of the problem, why we have too much, homeless dogs, homeless pets, because the financial situation of the middle class and low income. And like I said, we identify the problem, and then we look for the solution to cover the risk, what's happened, So let's look to the financial situation of the people to take care of their dogs, to keep their dogs. But so that way, if they are, they are sick or something, they don't let them in the street. Thank you.
How does Houston's homeless animal issue impact the lives of Houstonians?
Well, I've had conversations with some of the folks, the good people from PetSet about this, and my thing was, look, you had me at hello. I care about animals, and I know that if you want to make it a broader issue, you talk about public safety and health and safety, and I understand that's what you do when you want to make it a broader issue. But for me, it's a humanitarian issue. For me, when I hear that children, that there's so many stray animals that they become pests, that they're then abused because kids don't know any better, because they shoot them with pellet guns and throw rocks at them, that crushes me. We can do better than that. So yes, it's a public safety issue. Yes, it's a health and safety issue. Yes, some of the candidates will talk about people from Meals on Wheels being chased. But for me, I think it's a reflection on all of us that we allow some of these things that are happening, the corridor of cruelty and some of the other things that are happening in this city, and we're going to do better when I'm your mayor.
So the question was, how does Houston's homeless animal issue impact the lives of Houstonians?
Oh, okay. Kind of similar to the first one. It very much so. It's an impact. There's so many dangerous animals, so many stray animals. It's impacting the lives of everyday citizens greatly. When you have packs of animals, I have a 3-year-old, you never know if they're gonna come home safe. They're walking everywhere. It's a citywide problem. I don't know the exact amount, but and it's also a reflection on the city and how it operates. We could have have a handle on this problem long time ago. Bark has been ignored. We've run the same center over in Fifth Ward for years, and so it's just a conversation that we've been having too long. Now it's time for solutions, and as mayor, I'm going to use my 30 years of experience to just bring about solutions on day one.
Thank you. Now is the time to start writing questions on your note cards, which will be compiled, as you know, from previous experience. And we're going to go to a few other questions. Question number 3. Would you support a local ordinance that bans the sale of dogs from breeders and puppy mills in retail locations within the city of Houston? And we'll start with Mr. Kendall.
No. I had a professor in law school one time that said that if there's any phrase he could ban in the English language, it would be there ought to be a law. We always think that passing a law is going to solve a problem, and it never does. If you recall, we had a bunch of bicyclists being hurt here a few years ago, and we passed this ordinance that said that cars couldn't get closer than 3 feet to a bicyclist. The stats haven't changed one bit from that. This is something that we've got to attack proactively. Look, we have a burglary statute in this city. We catch 6% of the burglars. So we're not going to enforce this kind of law if it was passed. We've got to come up with something that's more practical and more proactive. We don't have the resources to enforce this kind of ordinance.
We need to be smart. When you have a problem, you have to think what the others think, Okay, why if we don't create a licensing at the city of Houston? Let's put lights on those illegal activities. Let's, organize it legally. So if you want to do that, okay, you come to the city, you get the permission, you get a city license, a permit, to do it every year legally. You follow the rules. That way it's a win-win situation, because you will never, anyone in this candidates, with all respect, you will never fix the problem. You can lower it, but you cannot fix it. You see, I have a master's degree 15 years ago in strategy and corporate strategy and all that and risk management, and I use it every day. How to approach any kind of problem. You have to think what the others are thinking. So let's make them come out from the shadow. Let's make it somehow legally.
The answer is yes, absolutely. And can you imagine if we said, oh, we can't enforce that law, it's going to be too hard to enforce, let's do nothing. Hope is not a strategy. That's what our current mayor says. Hope is a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. We have, depending on who's counting, let's say it's 1 million stray animals, and we're not just talking about dogs, we're talking about cats as well, and others actually. If you go over to near Northside Acres Homes, you'll see horses tied up over there, emaciated, if you've been around this city. And to tell me that we have 1 million or more animals that we could shut down pet stores and make sure that they own, and not get around it with 5013Cs like we know how they try to do, but actually sell rescued animals in pet stores, that we can't do that because we can't enforce it, so let's don't even try. I reject that notion.
The answer is no. I'm sorry. Read the question again.
Make sure you know the question. Make sure you know the question.
Yeah. By the time it gets...
Would you support a local ordinance that bans the sale of dogs from breeders and puppy mills in retail locations within the city of Houston?
The answer is yes. Not only would I support that, I think we need to make it part of the penal code in terms of how we're breeding animals. We're breeding animals. I got some old buddies that breed animals and used to breed them. I grew up here in Houston, in '65. And they often breed them, didn't have nowhere to sell them. And so they wind up being a part of the stray population. So yeah, we need to bring that under control, not just ban, but make it a part of the penal code where it's a crime to breed. And then advertise it. Advertise it like you do everything else. We have a new law in place, if you get caught, you're going to get fined or some jail time for breeding animals. It should be illegal. Houston has a problem. We've had too many maulings and for elderly and the young folk, and we need to bring it under control. So the answer is yes, plus make it a stricter law.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Bill King, do you believe Houston's homeless animal issue is solvable, and if so, how?
Well, I think we can certainly make it a lot better. And to me, the principal strategy is spade and neutering. This is what we need to really put the money behind. And I mean serious money, more than we're putting now. And it's the smart thing to do financially. This is one of those situations where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We've seen with Emancipet and Burial Dogs and Canine Angels, some of these groups, people want to have their animals taken care of, but they can't afford to because it's too expensive. And so I think what we've got to do is greatly expand the funding behind spay and neutering, and I would do it with vouchers is the way that it's currently done. Part of the program, at least now, is part of vouchers, and so that they can make appointments with Emancipet and some of these other groups that organize day-long clinics like Canine Angels does. And that's the only way we're ever going to get ahead of this problem, is by preventing the problem in the first place.
I think we look to the problem in the source again. Okay, and I see, as a mayor, I will pass the mandatory microchipping. As I said in the beginning, the pets are part of our families. You know, we have an ID. They must have an ID, and there must be an ordinance, a law, that's going to be mandatory to pass the microchip to every pet owner. That's the first thing. The second thing, yes, we need more fund for spaying, neutering, is a wonderful strategy. But I have a suggestion for all those no-profit organizations. You need to join forces. So if one no-profit organization has higher budget, why you don't give some of your budget to another no-profit organization with less, budget? This is just an idea that I'm thinking about. But I go back to my main. We need a mandatory microchipping for any pet owners in Harris County. Thank you.
Can you read the question again? By the time it gets to us, we're a little bit lost over here.
Do you believe Houston's homeless animal issue is solvable, and if so, how?
I think it's a Herculean task. Let's be honest, it's a tough task. I think wouldn't it be great if we had a mayor that talked about it every now and then? Wouldn't that be great? I've spent a lot of time with a lot of folks that have been working on this, and know tons more about these issues than do I. I just love animals. And so I went to people that I know that have worked so hard in this area for so many years and said, tell me how, as mayor, we can do better, whether it be high volume spaying and neutering, incentivizing vets to spend 30 days or so with a tax incentive or something, whether it be rotating the areas in which we do spaying and neutering, whether it be making sure that perhaps maybe the vets collect the license fee, which was Robert's idea, which is a brilliant idea. They say there's 300,000 animals that get vaccinated or get the rabies vaccination in Houston, but we only collect license fees for $45,000. We could lower the license fee to $10 and generate $2 or $3 million in revenue. And these are just some of the ideas that the people I've been dealing with have talked about to me, and I am like a sponge. I'm like, show me how we can do this. Let's do it better. What if Houston what if Houston were the leader in the country in dealing with this issue? Wouldn't that be incredible? We can do that. We can do that.
Yes, I believe it is solvable, and by a combination of the things that you've already heard: increase in spaying and neutering, incentivizing companies to do better. But it's going to take time. Rome wasn't built in a day. This is one of Houston's dirtiest kept secrets, and every time a different administration get in there, they keep it kept secret. And so it's going to take some time to do it, and I believe that we eventually can become a leader and a no-kill zone city over time. I think we should take BARC and expand it and put satellite offices around town, and just give people more options to take their dogs to. Anytime, there used to be a time you go to BARC, you see a line standing all the way out in the street just to give turn in an animal. That's a shame. It's smelly, it stinks over there. It's really nasty. And so yeah, it's solvable, but it's gonna take some time. We're gonna have to make it a topic, mention it, and put a lot of media coverage on it. And I think over time we can work some things out.
We had for you. How would you assess root causes and opportunities for improvement at BARC, then create systems change that would allow for appropriate staffing, processes, budgeting, etc.? We'll start with Bill King.
So I really question whether or not the city ought to be in the sheltering business at all. Clearly, the city's got the obligation to get the animals off the street and to a shelter. But you know, Bark, as I understand, is operating much better now than it has in the past. But you know, we've had some horrific things go on over there in the past. And I look at the example of what the city of Houston did with the Houston Zoo. You recall the Houston Zoo was really kind of run down and the animals weren't taken very good care of. And we spun that off to a nonprofit, and now it's one of the top zoos in the country. And so I just don't think there's any way that city employees that you're paying $10 or $12 or $13 an hour to are ever going to have the passion about this that people at CAP do, or ASPCP, or any of the other sheltering organizations. So I really think we ought to take a look at getting out of the sheltering business and have that done by nonprofits. Now, make sure you understand, I'm not talking about reducing funding for this. As a matter of fact, we need to spend more money on funding. But, you know, my sense is that the likelihood is that we would have more efficiency and better cared for animals if the people who have a passion for this are doing it instead of city employees.
Well, I want to thank Bark for all the hard working they have been doing with the, the low budget. I will call it low budget. Okay, that's the reality. We have to be realistic when we are talking about the problems. Also, I want to go back to, I want to thank also the non-lucrative, non-profit, organization about the pets and all that, especially Emancipate. They are doing very excellent job for the last 20 years. We need to listen to these people. You want to fix a problem, you have to open a communication with people. You are a strategist, I don't want to go back to my work in the national security strategy, but it's about the philosophy. They are sitting there. We have to talk to them, tell them, hey, give me your feedback. What you think? How we can do that? We need to create like a city council. A city council to look after the pets, what's their needs, what's the problems. We need to hear, we need to help them. Creating fund, and giving more money maybe will be a short-term solution, but you need a long-term solution. A long-term solution can be just if we create a high council to take care of the pets, that'd be great. So that's my idea for right now. Thank you.
Can you hit me with it again? Thank you.
Okay. How would you assess root causes and opportunities for improvement at BARC, then create systems changes that would allow for appropriate staffing, processes, budgeting, etc.?
First, let me say, BARC has hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. Let's not forget that CAP, of course, has volunteers, PetSet, every group that's out there doing good work, working very hard, trying to work together, actually have great volunteers and great people. And I refuse to accept that the whether it's $10 or $12 or whatever dollar an hour worker doesn't care about animals. I reject that on its face. But let me say this. BARC spends twice what Harris County spends per animal. BARC, let me say that again so everybody realizes this. BARC spends, they have a $14.1 million budget. They spend twice what Harris County spends per animal. We have to get some transparency at BARC. We have to, I'm not going to allow BARC to limit their hours such that they don't take in animals. I'm not going to allow that. We're going to expand their animals. We're going to expand the time where they take in animals. We're going to look at efficiencies where Harris County and the city can work together. Can we do that? First thing we're probably going to have to do is a full-on process and financial audit of BARC. I'm talking about the leadership of BARC, not the rank and file that are working every day for these animals.
Well, Buzbee just read my mind.
Then just say, me too.
Yeah, so basically, I was going to say that I believe we should consider combining Harris County and Houston together, put more funding into the BARC operations. Yes, they have improved over the years. I don't think no dog should be left behind. When 311 gets a call, I think they all should be taken care of. I hope they've improved. I've been gone for 6 years now. Some of the root causes, more transparency, like you said. I didn't know they were paying budgeted $14 million a year. But I think if you join Harris County and Houston together, that would be a great opportunity to start with. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And again, as I said earlier, we need to have satellite offices for Bark as well, maybe one on each side of town.
Thousands of strays reproducing and backyard breeders contributing to the stray epidemic in Houston. So starting with Bill King.
Well, like I said, where we really need to be focusing our resources and attention on spay and neutering. That is, we need to spend all the money we need to spend there to really get that ramped up. I went down to one of the spay and neutering Saturdays where they went and picked up their vouchers, and I got there about 10 o'clock, and the line was out the door and around the block. I mean, there must have been 200 people standing there in line just to pick up their voucher. I went down to Emancipet the other day, and at 10 o'clock in the morning they opened. There was a line outside, 20 people deep. So this is something that people want to do. They just can't afford to do it. And so I think this is a situation where, look, I'm a finance guy. I'm a numbers guy. I don't believe in spending money willy-nilly. But this is something that I think would actually save the city money in the long run, because it really is pay me now or pay me later. So this is something I'm absolutely prepared to invest a lot of money in.
I have been all over the world, rich countries, poor countries, but I cannot talk about what I have been doing. But I can tell you one more thing. We need to think about the pets that are part of our families. If we think first that the pets are part of our families, then we're going to treat them at the level of our families. And if we do that, I go back to my first, I look at it in France. France, they have the same model. They create, like a Harris clinic vet for middle class and low income families. It doesn't matter how much money you make, it's too expensive. This is going to be a card, it depends on how much is your income. It goes at discount, it's a flat rate. You go, if you have a surgery, if you have spaying, neutering, maybe you pay $2, $5, it depends on your income. And it succeeds. In France, it succeeds. It's more than 15 years they are doing it. It succeeds. I want to do it here as mayor. I will do it. I promise. Because I love the pets. And I treat them as a part of my family, and I will do it. That's my promise. Thank you.
What is your plan to end the cycle of thousands of strays reproducing and backyard breeders contributing to the stray epidemic in Houston?
Well, we talked about high-volume spaying and neutering and incentivizing vets to do that. I had an idea that some of my friends who are in the movement didn't think was a good idea, which was trying to come up with some sort of text that could do high-volume spaying and neutering that didn't have to go to vet school. And reasonable minds would differ about whether that's a good idea. I would ask you to check out TonyBuzbeeForMayor.com and look at we have a very detailed plan with regard to animal cruelty as well as the stray or homeless animal population. I want to mention a few more ideas, but I hope you will check out our website. Not only the licensing fees that we can raise more revenue so we can do more spaying and neutering, I also want to look into an animal cruelty registry. I think we need that in the city of Houston. I also believe that we should have special courts that deal with animal cruelty issues. We've shown that with vet issues, veterans like myself, but also with drug courts, that those work when you have judges that have special expertise in what is and what is not animal cruelty, because a lot of people don't even know. Obviously, as PetSet has made very clear, education is a huge component of these issues. And then finally, SB 295 failed at the State House. We're going to pass it in the city of Houston.
What is your plan to end the cycle of thousands of strays reproducing and backyard breeders contributing to the stray epidemic in our city?
Well, just reemphasize backyard breeding should be out loud altogether. There should be a crime, not just banned, but you should go to jail for that, because we're living in a time now where animals are like humans all over. You dump them in garbage can and you get caught on the camera, we're coming looking for. Ain't that right, officer? You do this, you do that, you burn them out, you come and look for. You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get some jail time, and so that should be banned in backyard, and then increase spade and neutering. And again, not just wait till the epidemic or a killing or mauling happens. Let this go out every day. Let the advertisement be an ongoing thing, okay? Not just when something terrible happens.
Women's centers, emergency shelters, and the like. So again, what's your take on animals not being allowed into those centers and shelters? Bill King?
Yeah, so I ran into this issue back in 2006 after Hurricane Rita. I chaired this regional task force that dealt with the evacuation plans. Those of you who were here in 2005 remember how awful that evacuation was after Rita. And one of the problems that took place in that is that nobody had thought about the fact that when people leave their house, they're not going to leave without their animals. I mean, that's just the way it is. They will stay there and drown with their animals. And so we had to rewrite all the evacuation plans to figure out how we're going to accommodate animals in the shelters and on the vehicles and all of that. And I think that's true of any of these kinds of facilities you're talking about where people are in crisis. This is their best friend. This is their emotional support. They are not going to leave them, and so you've got to figure out a way to accommodate them.
You know, we have to look to the problem in the core of the problem. You know, if those animals, they were having a microchip, an ID, you know, if we have this microchip ID, you know, we know who his dog is, we know his health, I'm sure we can change the law and put them inside with their owners. But we have to look to the problem in the core. We need a microchipping for the microchip for the pets. That way they have their ID. That way we know, you know, who they are, what kind of health they have. You know, you just put in the computer and you have like their ID, their record. We won't have problem, you know, to put them together with their owners in the shelter or in the woman place or whatever is the place. But we have to start first by the law. The law is mandatory microchip for all the owners in Harris County. Thank you.
Would you let me repeat?
Yes, please.
Okay. What is your take on animals not being allowed into most women's centers or emergency centers and shelters?
We saw this in Harvey. Can you imagine? I have Lucy, Lacey, and Lily. They sleep with me every night. Now I have Rex, my foster, who probably will be a failed foster. So I probably got 4 dogs now. Can you imagine if I had an emergency, whether it be going to a center because of abuse situation or whether it be a hurricane, you think I'm going there without my dogs? No, I'm not going anywhere without my dogs. So, and I think that's something Robert reminded me when I laid out a full veterans platform, which is also a cause that's very important to me. Like, what do you do when you have a veteran who wants to bring his or her animal? We have to accommodate that because it's good for all of us when we do that. And of course, I think nobody up here will argue that we should not have mandatory microchipping. We absolutely need to have that because it will help us at the shelters to find the owner of the animal. That's just common sense, and we should require it when we require the rabies vaccination and the mandatory licensing. But absolutely, because I can tell you, I'm not leaving Lucy, Lacey, or Lily, or Rex behind any time.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, the short-term solution would be to bring them to the shelters, caged, make sure they're under control. You know, no way they should be left behind. The long-term solution should be having shelters to accommodate them by building onto their shelter for the dog area, and then new shelters to make them mandatory to have an accommodation for animals to be included. No animals should be left behind because of the storm.
And now we're going to have 1-minute closing statements from each of our
Well, I got to start everything tonight, didn't I? That's great. You know, this is obviously a serious issue the city's facing. It's not the only serious issue we have. Our streets are in terrible shape. You know, our floods are admitted this week that we're no better prepared for another flooding event than we were before Harvey. Homelessness is spinning out of control. Garbage is not being picked up. There's a whole variety of things. But when you pull that string, what this all relates to is the finances. And what the city will tell you is always that they don't have enough money to do this. By the way, the city ran in the general fund a $435 million operating deficit last year. It's double the deficit we've ever run before. But you know what? Revenue last year was up $480 million from when the last year Anise Parker was mayor. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And what we've got to do is elect a mayor that's going to prioritize spending using things like zero-based budgeting and other accepted management tools to get this under control. Because if we don't do that, nothing we do in any of these areas are going to matter.
You know, we have to look, to the successful stories outside of the United States of America, and we learn. The first thing we need to teach the community to, how to treat, the pets. As I said in the beginning, I treat them as a part of my family. I have 4 children. My wife is there. As a part of the family. If you have this thing in your mind as a pet owner, the solution can be coming by themselves quickly. The second thing is about funding. Yes, we have the budget, we have a lot of funds, but we are not, at the mayor office, current mayor office, they are not smart how they need to invest. It's like you have water is coming. If you don't put something to stop it, you're just gonna waste it. We need to invest first. Financial problems with families, they have a problem, middle class and low income. They need the clinic, flat rate for the pets. This is Harris Clinic. Second, we need a ID, microchip for all the pets, mandatory law. That way we're gonna fix a lot of problems if we establish these 2 things at the mayor office, these 2 things. Thank you.
Yeah, let me say this first, because I've met with many of the good people that are working hard for animal welfare, rescue, whether it be transport, whether it be sheltering, whether it be adoption, fostering, whatnot. Thank you for your work. Thank you for what you do. I mean, I know, because I've been out there on the street with you, and I know that it's a thankless task. And I know the benefit you get from it is to save one animal. You can save one animal. I've seen the looks on your faces when we provide a shelter for one animal. I love that. And I believe, go to TonyBuzbeeForMayor.com and read. It's just too much to put in 1 minute of the policy that we put in place that we feel like we can actually pass in the city of Houston and be a leader, not only with regard to animal cruelty and putting real punitive measures in place to deal with that, but also we put a revenue measure in place where we can raise the money through licensing and other ways that we can actually spay and neuter animals and really make a dent into this homeless animal population. And I believe that Houston, Texas can be a beacon and a leader in this area, and it's going to take all of your help, but I'm ready to lead. Thank you.
Let me thank PetSet's for inviting me here today. I believe, thank you so much. Thank you, sir. I believe it's going to take a combination of things to solve the animal crisis that we have. It is a crisis. It needs to be noted. It needs to be said. It needs to be conversated on much more. It's a crisis, and it needs to be brought under control. The city has money to take care of it. We need to allocate more funds to that department. Do the other creative things I said earlier, maybe have some satellite offices and things of that nature. We need to listen to the public, and also teach the public who are dog owners and animal owners how to properly take care of their animals all the time. It should be an ongoing thing. As your mayor, I'm going to make sure that it's not only going to happen when crisis occurs, as I said earlier. It's going to be an ongoing thing. I love animals. I grew up with animals. We had about 100 in my backyard on the north side. And they all come to our house, and Daddy made us, my late dad made us go take them in and turn them in over on Carr Street. And it's about time we improve that. And so as mayor, I'm gonna make bark and animal control and the way we receive calls and the way we respond, I'm gonna make that a #1 priority, because Houston is a pet-loving community.